Joe Anderson and Al Clopine of Pure Financial Advisors have the answers to your retirement plan. This is Your Money, Your Wealth.
Hey, a very common vehicle that people say for retirement is called an IRA, individual retirement account. But did you know one simple mistake could take half of that account? We're going to get into 6 costly mistakes that could blow up your entire retirement if you do not pay attention to today's show. Good morning, everyone. Show's called Your Money or Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson, president of Pure Financial Advisors. I'm with the big man. He's sitting right over there. Big Al Clopine will be joining in momentarily. You know, we're talking something very important today when it comes to your overall retirement. Your individual retirement account is a very key component to make sure if you're successful or not. $7.4 trillion are in IRAs. $24 trillion are in defined contribution plans, such as your 401k, 403b, TSP plans. But $7.4 trillion sitting in IRAs, and people are not sure what to do with it. That's the financial focus today. Hey, take a look at this. When you look at retirement accounts, especially IRAs, you might just be thinking, hey, it's only for the baby boomers. No, every single group and every single generation has, about 30-40% of this generation has an individual retirement account. So what we're talking about is going to affect everyone. So it's you, it's your grandparents, it's your children, and then potentially your grandchildren. So you want to make sure that you understand the rules and the regulations because they're like an egg. This IRA is an egg, and if you drop it, it will break and you can't put it together. So to help me out, let's bring in the smartest man in the room, and there's only 2 of us here, Big Al Clopine. Alan, $7.4 trillion in IRA accounts.
Well, hold on. I'm the smartest guy in the room?
Well, it's just you and I.
That's a big compliment.
Yeah, man. Not in everyone's living room, just this room.
Just this room. The one we're in standing right now.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Got it.
But $7.4 trillion, infested with tax. I think people make a little mistake here, little mistake there. And we've seen this for years, that they don't understand the rules, the regulations, and half of it could get cut in a matter of minutes.
Well, Joe, that's exactly right. And I guess the reason that this happens is because your IRA dollars are pre-tax. So in other words, they grow. You haven't paid taxes on them. And when you pull those dollars out, then you got to pay taxes. And in some cases, like when you pass away, for example, and if you have a big enough estate, there's estate taxes, there's federal taxes, there is state of California or whatever state you live in taxes. So there's things that you need to think about with your IRAs. So we're going to talk about 6 costly mistakes. So the first one is a lot of people just don't know the basics, what you can and can't do. So we'll get into that. The second thing is missing spousal IRAs. Did you know that if one of the spouse worked, the other one can do a spousal IRA on the working spouse's income? So we're going to get into the nuances there. How about this? Penalties on early withdrawals. It's a lot more expensive than you think. And then what about missing your required minimum distributions? At age 70 and a half, you have to take money out whether you want to or not. Then we see this all the time, Joe and I. These are where some of the biggest mistakes are made on your beneficiary forms. So we're going to go over some of those blunders and how to avoid them. And then finally, we're going to talk about your portfolio and things that you should think about in terms of your investing. So, Joe, we got a full show today.
Yeah, jam-packed, buddy.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that we got to make sure that we cover. Individual retirement accounts, there's a lot of money here, and you have to be careful. People think, hey, I mean, it's easy putting money in, but then once you start taking distributions, that's where you have to be careful because it's infested with tax, and if you pass away and if the beneficiaries don't know what to do, it could be fully taxable to them. So we've seen huge mistakes, so hopefully at the end of the show you'll understand and you'll be almost IRA experts. But let's just start with the basics. What is an IRA? Individual retirement accounts. And so you can make a contribution. So this is coming from your checking account, savings account, $5,500. If you're over 50, $6,500. It may be tax deductible, but you have to have earned income. You have to have earned income. income. That's the biggest thing when it comes to IRAs. Also, you have to be under 70 and a half. Al, I think a lot of times people will roll over a 401k into an IRA as well. So when we're just talking about the basics here, these are contributions. But a lot of you have a lot more money in IRAs, and the reason for that is that you had another retirement account that you maybe rolled right into the IRA.
Yeah, exactly. And some of you have Roth IRAs, and of course we talk about that a lot on this show. So a Roth IRA has some of the same different limitations. $5,500 for most of you. If you're 50 and older, it's $6,500. That's the same as a regular IRA. There is no tax deduction. You do need to have earned income to do this. But here's the main difference is your withdrawals are tax-free. This is why we like Roth IRAs so much, because if you can have some of your income tax-free in retirement, then you can end up paying a lot less taxes. And so contributions, Joe, as you just mentioned, that's one way to get money to a Roth IRA. You can also get money to a Roth IRA if you have a Roth provision in your 401k, and you can even do Roth conversions. So there's a lot to know in terms of getting money into these accounts.
Right, so you have a 401k account, right, that you can put in $18,000. If you're over 50, you can put in 24. If you have a Roth provision in your 401k, the same income limit or the same contribution limits is the $18,000 and 24. The cool thing with the Roth 401k or the Roth provision in the 401k is there is no AGI limitations. We're talking IRAs today, so there is AGI limitations when it comes to taking deductions and also when you want to contribute to that Roth IRA.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to talk about that in terms of contributions. A lot of people that actually can contribute are not. And this is actually those that are between 50 and 70 that are actually eligible to contribute to IRAs, and over 70% for the last 4 years here on this graph are not contributing. And partly it's because maybe you don't know the rules. Maybe you don't realize that if you actually have a 401k, you can still contribute to an IRA. And Joe, I think that's a common misconception.
Right. If you have a 401k plan that you're fully funding, $18,000, $24,000, or maybe you put in a couple $100 in, it doesn't matter. You have a 401k plan at your work, you can also contribute into an individual retirement account. So you can set up the IRA, and looking at the stats here, 70% of people are not even making IRA contributions that are eligible to do so. So this is just an added vehicle that will grow tax deferred for you. We're so behind the eight ball when it comes to savings for retirement, and people are just not taking advantage of this. Also, here's another mistake. How about a spousal contribution? If you're married, all right, and you're working and your wife isn't, or maybe your wife's working and you're not, and I don't know why I feel like I'm talking to a gentleman right now, but let's say if one spouse is not working, how about if we do that way?
Yeah, please, let's be politically correct.
Come on. Contribution limits, $5,500, $1,000. Here's same. But one spouse needs to be working, all right? So all you need is one spouse, and it is the contribution limit's $13,000. So that one individual needs to make $13,000. Both spouses can make a contribution. So let's say I'm not working, my wife is, I'm not married, but just assume I am, all right? Did you know I'm single? No?
Yeah, I did know that.
So
now so do our viewers.
So 13,000, right? If you're over 50, I can still contribute to a retirement account even though I'm not working. The wife is at work, I'm at home, I can still put money into it. It's a big deal.
That's how you envision it? Your wife's going to be working and you're going to be at home.
I'm done.
Anyway, one more point.
Sunday mornings, I'll be not watching this program.
Quick point I want to make, and that is you can do a contribution to a Roth IRA or a regular IRA or any combination up to that $5,500, but you can't do a $5,500 Roth contribution and a $5,500 IRA contribution. So realize that those two limitations work together.
All right, we got the basics down. So when we get back, we're going to talk about some mistakes that you're making with the money to make sure that you don't lose half of it. We got a lot more to go. Don't go anywhere. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Good morning, everyone. Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson with Big Al, talking about IRA, costly IRA mistakes most of you have an individual retirement account. So we're talking about things that you have to avoid to make sure that you can keep more for you and less for Uncle Sam. Before we dive into the meat, let's go to the true-false question.
My wife can't fund her IRA because she works as a stay-at-home mom. And Joe, that's false. We actually talked about that last segment. You can set up a spousal IRA. As long as your spouse is working, you can use their earned income to fund your own IRA. Couple things to remember. Depending upon your joint income or your spouse's who's working income, you may or may not be able to deduct that IRA, so there's some limitations there. And if your non-working spouse is over 70 and a half, he or she cannot fund an IRA, but they could fund a Roth IRA. So there you go. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, no income or age limitations when it comes to Roth IRAs. So if you're going to continue to work part-time, which a lot of people are continuing to work in their 70s,
Sure.
you can absolutely fund a Roth. Only one spouse needs to be working. So if your wife is a stay-at-home mom, God bless, she can still contribute into her retirement accounts, which she should, because that's a huge mistake that we see.
It's a missed opportunity. So I guess now, at this point in our show, we have a question for Joe from you guys, our viewers. And guess what? Joe has not seen the question. So let's see how he does, just kind of point blank.
Hi, Joe. I have a question. I've retired. I have IRAs. Should I convert any of that over to a Roth, or part of it, or all of it?
All right. Should you convert your IRA to a Roth IRA? That's a big question. We talk about conversions on this show quite a bit. And I think the short answer to it is maybe. You have to take a look at a couple of different factors, but you can't look at this in a bubble. I think people read a lot of magazines, they might hear a lot of TV or watch some TV shows or listen to the radio, and they'll say, yeah, this person should convert because they're young, this person shouldn't convert because they're in a high tax bracket. No, you have to look very specifically. A couple of things. First of all, how much money do you have in an IRA? What's your other fixed income sources? What are you trying to accomplish long term when it comes to retirement income? Right, what is your required minimum distribution going to look like? Do you want to pass wealth to the next generation? What's your tax bracket today? What's it going to be in the future? In the short answer, yes, convert, because the best part about doing a Roth IRA conversion, if you don't want to pay the taxes, you can always recharacterize. At least it puts you in the game. We're big believers of a tax-free income, so Roth IRA conversions is one of the best things that you can do. Boom.
Not bad. I think it was 61 seconds, but pretty good. So, Joe, I mean, with that answer, so if someone does a Roth conversion and they want to recharacterize part of it, that's okay too. So you convert $50,000, you do your tax return next year, you decide, you know what, $40,000 would have been a better number because it kept me in a certain tax bracket. You can recharacterize $10,000 in that example. So let's get into the next mistake, and that's withdrawing your IRA funds too early, because there's penalties. There's penalties with the federal government and the state government. So here's an example of somebody under 59 and a half that withdrew $50,000 from their IRA, and they live in California, and they happen to be in the 28% federal bracket. So look at this. Federal and California tax is about $17,500. Your penalty, federal and yes, California has a penalty as well, $6,250. So your total taxes in this example is almost $24,000. It's almost half. And that's really common. When we see folks under 59 and a half withdrawing money out of their IRAs, you have to spend about 50% of it on taxes. And I know it's tempting sometimes. You get behind on bills, or you're trying to figure out how to pay for a kid's college. And there is a $10,000 exemption where you can pull $10,000 out and not pay a penalty. You'll still pay tax, but we would tell you not to use those funds for anything other than retirement, because that's what they're for. And Joe, that's probably one of the bigger mistakes we see.
Right. I mean, if you take a look at just the tax and penalties alone, we're half. Take away the penalties. Right? If people think they're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, you have another thing coming, because all of those dollars are infested in tax. Every dollar that comes out of your retirement account is going to be taxed at ordinary income. So we spend a lot of time talking about taxes on this program. We talk a lot about retirement accounts, such as today, because people make mistakes. You look at your balance, right? You say, wow, I got $1 million in my retirement account. Alan, I would say you have nowhere near $1 million because half of that potentially could go to tax, or at least 30% of it, depending on how much that you're pulling out, especially if you're going to stay here in California with another, 6 to 10% state tax. So when you look at this, and then when you look at the penalties, so a 10% penalty if you pull it out too early, then you have this free zone. The free zone is this, 59.5 to 70.5. You can do anything you want with that money. But once you turn 70.5 in your retirement accounts, as long as you're not working and still activate or an active participant in a 401k plan, you have to take a required minimum distribution. It's a mandate by law. They want that money to come out of these retirement accounts. Why? Because they want their taxes. 70.5, let's say you got $1 million in your retirement account, your RMD is going to be about 40 grand. That's just the starting point. Each year as you age, you will receive a larger divisor, or more money has to come out of the account. If you don't take the money out, it's a 50% tax penalty. 50%. They're not messing around. It's one of the most egregious penalties in the code. 50% tax penalty. So if you have to pull out 40 grand, your tax penalty alone is $20,000. Al, I don't think most people have a clue of how much taxes that they'll pay because they have all this money in the retirement account. The required distribution is meant to get all of the money out of the account before they turn or until they reach life expectancy.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right, Joe. And you like to use the word infested, and that's a good word. It's infested with taxes.
It's gross. It's disgusting.
Is that like it's sore? Is it infested?
Yes.
Anyway,
it's like
there's a lot there's a lot of tax money. There's a lot of taxes that come out of these things, and so you got to be careful. And so this last example that we showed you, you have to take money out of your IRA at age 70.5, whether you want to or not. And the taxes depend upon your tax bracket, right? So it may be low, it may be high, depending upon how much income you have. But if you forget, like we said, it's a 50% penalty. And by the way, then you still have to pay the tax. So in that particular example, you're probably going to lose 100% of that year's distribution between penalties and taxes. So let's now get into some other mistakes, and this is with beneficiary forms. And you know what, some of this seems logical, but we're seeing these mistakes over and over again. Like, for example, some of you have IRAs or 401ks where you don't even have a beneficiary form on file. So what happens when you pass? It's like there's no person that this is designated to go to. It's a big mistake. Or how about if it's an outdated form? Like you've got your prior spouse on there, and you've been married twice and divorced twice since then. You got your first spouse on there, and guess what? That spouse is going to receive your IRA or 401k unless you change the beneficiary statement.
Right. You got to look at the beneficiary form on file. You have to look at contingent beneficiaries. So if you have children, right, you name your spouse, and then from there you want to name children, or if you have a charity in mind, whatever. There's outdated forms. Now your 401k is under ERISA. IRAs are, in a sense, when it comes to beneficiaries, it doesn't have to go to the spouse. So be careful there. Like Al just said, we see this mistake all the time, is that the ex-spouse is still on the form. You might have kids. You want the money to go to the kids, but guess what? It's going to go to the ex-spouse. Hopefully then who knows, right? You're dead. You got to make sure that you're tight on all of this stuff when it comes to beneficiary forms. You know, and then looking at maybe you have kids like Al, right? where they're irresponsible.
Or my kids, my irresponsible kids. Actually, my kids are great. It's your future kids.
Yes,
I'm worried
my future
about.
kids. Yes, exactly. Back to the future.
Yes.
And here's the biggest one, right? The last one was like naming the trust as the beneficiary.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people do that. So why is that a problem?
Huge mistakes, because a trust is an entity. It's not a human being. It does not have life expectancy. All right. So we could speak for another half an hour just on a concept called the stretch IRA, which it allows the non-spouse beneficiary to stretch out the tax liability over their life expectancy. Let's say you name a trust as the beneficiary. What a trust will do, it'll either blow up your IRA, or you can control the money from the grave. That's what it will do. But in most cases, people do not understand the complexity of naming a trust as the beneficiary of their retirement account. In all cases, name your spouse first if you're married, or the people that you want it to go to. At the very end of your long list of beneficiaries, then you can name the trust. If you want to control the money from the grave and say, you know what, I don't trust these people that are going to get this large sum of money. I want to make sure that I control the distributions. I don't want them to take it all out, pay a bunch of tax, and blow it. So I want to make sure that they only get a certain amount each year. You can absolutely do that through a trust, but you want to make sure that you understand the complexity of naming a trust, because it's a whole different ballgame. A trust is an entity. It's not a human being. So there's different things that you have to consider. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, I want to flip the show back to you. We got a bunch of good emails that we want to answer, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll just kind of finalize the 6 costly mistakes that you're making with your IRA dollars. Don't go anywhere. The show's called Your Money or Wealth. Hey, welcome back. The show's called Your Money or Wealth. Good morning. We're talking about costly IRA mistakes. I'm Joe Anderson. I'm with Big Al Clopine, of course. Hey, before we wrap up the show with your email questions, let's go to the true-false question.
When I inherit my parents' IRA, I should transfer the account into my name to avoid having to take their required minimum distributions. Joe, we do see this from time to time. What do you think?
False. Yeah, you got to keep it
right.
in the deceased's name. It makes sense, though, with every other asset, right? So let's say if you inherit mom and dad's house, what do? You sell it and you put the proceeds in your account. Or you keep the account and you put title in your name. Any other asset class. But when it comes to IRAs, be extremely careful. You can't put mom and dad's into your own, or your kids can't put yours into their own. It will blow it up. 100% taxable. It's a prohibitive transaction. They have to keep that account into your name, the deceased's name, all right, if you were the one that passed, and they have to take required distributions based on their life expectancy. I don't care if they're 5 years old, 30 years old, or 80 years old. They'll have to take a required distribution because they want to recycle that money. They don't want to have that money still deferred from taxes. Let's go to the last mistake that you are making, and that all has to do with how you're investing it, right? You're too conservative, too aggressive, or you have too few of investments.
Yes, inflation risk, market risk, concentration risk. So we're kind of keeping high level right now, but we see these mistakes very frequently. So a lot of times in an IRA, we'll see nothing but CDs or very safe investments. We'll see other ones that are 100% in a single asset class or a few securities, and there's problems with all of those. So you do want to take a look at what's an appropriate asset mix for you. It takes a little bit of planning to figure this out, but if you do just a little bit of planning, you'll be able to get the right asset mix and avoid these 3 risks.
Right. I mean, especially if you have other accounts. Let's say you have a Roth IRA, you have a brokerage account, and you have an IRA. Each of these want to be allocated differently, right? So you want to have a strategy for each of the different accounts. So be careful there, because a lot of times we'll see the brokerage account or your checking account or your bank accounts filled with cash, and then we got one individual stock, and you think that's diversified. No, you got your head in the freezer, and you got your feet in the oven, and you're trying to stay warm. That's not going to make you keep warm. It's going to kill you, just like your retirement account. Yeah, I knew.
Wow,
let's go.
Yeah,
you like that one, huh?
A little morbid there, Joe.
Well,
anyway,
that's what happens.
Let's get to the email questions.
Let's do it.
All right, this is from Jim in Leucadia. I'm 66 years old and have funds from a pension plan that will be distributed soon. Can I invest them in my Roth IRA? So Jim, I assume you mean that it's going to be like a lump sum distribution. So what happens is you can take that lump sum distribution, you can put it into a regular IRA. There's no taxes there. If you put the money into a Roth IRA, it's a fully taxable transaction.
Maybe he was saying, hey, I have a pension, right? It's giving me income. Now can I put some of that income into a Roth IRA? Then the answer would be no. You have to have earned income. Pension does not qualify as earned income. So to recap, if you have a pension plan and you're taking the lump sum, it's a 2-step process. You got to take that lump sum, roll it into an IRA, and then slowly chip away and put it into a Roth IRA would be our suggestion. But you can't put it directly into a Roth. You just get blown up in tax, so you don't want to do that. You want to look at your tax return. You want to see how much money that you have room in whatever tax bracket that you're willing to do. So that's it for us today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. I don't know, did we get to the 6 costly mistakes, Al? I know you're...
Yeah, we got all 6.
Did we get all 6? Okay.
We did.
Because if we got 5, then
I would be really
been,
troubled.
Yes.
We got to all 6.
Join us next week. Because it's going to be phenomenal. We're going to be talking about, guess what, your money and your wealth. We're going to talk retirement. We're going to go taxes or whatever. Oh, and if your retirement is a Volkswagen or a Ferrari. Now, if you don't want to watch that, I don't know what you want to watch. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. We'll see you next time. Your money, your wealth, right here.